Let's go, Lions fans! Gather around because I've got some big takeaways from our preseason clash with the Kansas City Chiefs. It wasn't just another preseason game, it was fireworks until the last second, and we came out on top with a victory. But beyond the scoreboard, it's all about growth and getting ready for the regular season. Let's break it down. First up, let's talk wide receivers. And I'm going to say it. The X-receiver spot is still up for grabs. The Lions have been trying to fill that gap left by Josh Reynolds, and so far, the search continues. What's surprising, though, is who's been making waves. Sione Vaki, yes, the safety-turned running back, is proving himself to be a real weapon in the passing game. This guy had a great debut against the Giants, and he didn't slow down against the Chiefs either. Vaki finished with 60 receiving yards on 4 catches, and let's not forget, he pretty much carried that final drive of the first half. The question now is, where does he fit? We've got Jahmyr Gibbs and David Montgomery ahead of him in the backfield, but this guy is showing that he needs to be on the field. Now, Isaiah Williams also had himself a game, catching 6 passes for 71 yards. He had a roller coaster day on special teams, fumbling a punt return, but redeeming himself with a great return late in the fourth quarter that set up the game-winning kick. Here's the thing. Williams isn't a fit for the X spot either. He's more of a slot receiver. And we've already got Amon-Ra St. Brown and Caliph Raymond holding it down there. So, can the Lions afford to keep a third slot receiver when we're so thin on the outside? That's the big question. Speaking of outside receivers, there hasn't been much to write home about. Caden Davis did have the play of the game with a 61-yard catch and run. But let's be real, that was thanks to some bad preseason defense. Other than that, he was quiet. Donovan Peoples-Jones had a solid block that sprung Davis, but struggled to get separation for most of the game. And Daurice Fountain? After shining in camp, he's been pretty invisible so far. So where does that leave us? Vaki is shining as a pass catcher, but he's more of a backfield threat. Williams deserves a spot on the roster, but he's not going to solve our outside receiver problem. It's looking more and more like the Lions might have to change their approach if they're going to replace Reynolds effectively. Now let's shift gears to the quarterback situation. Nate Sudfeld was a bit better against the Chiefs, but there's no doubt in my mind, Hendon Hooker should be the Lions' backup QB. Sudfeld had some decent moments, like that 61-yard pass to Davis, but he also threw a bad interception. Hooker, on the other hand, came in during the second half and looked sharp. He completed 12 of 15 passes for 150 yards and even scored a rushing touchdown. Yes, he's still learning, and he had a fumbled exchange late in the game. But the offense just looks more alive when he's under center. In the unfortunate event that Jared Goff gets hurt, I think Hooker is the guy who should step in. He's still green, but his energy and playmaking ability give the Lions a better chance to keep the offense moving. Oh, and shout out to Hooker for pulling off a perfect quarterback slide. We don't always see that from rookies. Let's give some love to the backup secondary as well. The Chiefs had most of their first-string offense out there, including Patrick Mahomes, but they only managed to put up 2 field goals. Sure, they scored a touchdown later with Carson Wentz, but that came after a short field thanks to a fumbled kickoff. Overall, our backup secondary guys like Amik Robertson, Kindle Vildor, and Khalil Dorsey were holding their own. Once Mahomes left, Wentz only threw for 31 yards. Brandon Joseph had another standout performance with 5 tackles and a forced fumble, even though the Chiefs recovered it. Considering the Lions' secondary was a weak spot last season, it's great to see these depth pieces stepping up. It's a good sign that this unit could be a strength heading into 2024. I also want to give a quick shout-out to 2 defensive players who caught my eye, Mitchell Agood and Ty Summers. Agood, battling for a spot at defensive end, had a couple of standout tackles on screen plays. He didn't record a sack, but he made plays that don't show up on the stat sheet, like sniffing out screens and holding the edge. Keep an eye on him as he fights for a roster spot. And Ty Summers, this guy was signed less than a week ago and already looked like he belonged. With Malik Jefferson injured, Summers has a real shot to make this team as a depth linebacker. Finally, let's talk about Jake Bates. He's the Lions' only kicker at the moment, and he had a solid day, going 4 for 4 on field goals, including a game-winning 43-yarder. But it wasn't all smooth sailing. He missed an extra point, which is concerning. Consistency is going to be key for Bates moving forward. He's got the leg strength, but he needs to make sure he's nailing those routine kicks if he wants to stick around in the NFL. All right, Lions fans, now I want to hear from you. What do you think about Sione Vaki's emergence? Should Hendon Hooker be our backup quarterback? And are you worried about our receiver depth heading into the regular season? Let me know in the comments. Now, switching gears, let's talk about something that's been quietly talked about in training camp, but could have a huge impact on our defensive front. We all know how critical pass pressure has been for the Lions over the past few seasons. We've made some strides in recruiting Aiden Hutchinson, and while we've been aggressive in addressing pass pressure, it's been mostly with second and third string guys. But one of those names that should be on your radar is none other than CFL Defensive Player of the Year Matthew Betts. This guy has recorded 18 sacks in the CFL, which, mind you, is only 18 games, so he was basically averaging a sack a game. When I first heard that the Lions were taking a look at him, I was pretty excited. I even made a video about it when rumors started circulating that the Lions were working on him. After that, things went quiet for a while, but then, boom, the Lions signed Matthew Betts. They brought him in to compete during camp, and while we haven't heard much since, I've been paying close attention to him in camp. Head coach Dan Campbell is very excited about Betts' skill set, so much so that he's been trying him out at Sam linebacker. We recently learned that not only Matthew Betts, but also James Houston would be taking over the Sam linebacker role. This is great for both of them. It increases their chances of making the final 53-man roster. Even if Betts doesn't make the cut, he still has the practice squad as an option, where he can continue to grow and contribute. Now, here's where things get interesting. I started to wonder, has Betts lost some of his confidence? This thought popped into my head after I saw an interview with him on TSN, the Canadian sports network. And listen, I'm not trying to stereotype here, but Canadians are known for being ridiculously nice. Watching the interview, I couldn't help but think that maybe Betts was being a little too modest about his abilities. I mean, look, Ryan Reynolds is Canadian and he's one of the nicest guys in Hollywood, so maybe it's just part of their DNA? Anyway, I watched that TSN interview, and Betts seemed humble but focused. He talked about how camp is going well for him. It's the grind we all know, long days, but he's keeping the right mindset, taking it one day at a time and focusing on getting better. He knows his job is to improve his fundamentals and prepare for the season ahead, and honestly, that's the kind of mindset that wins games. One of the things Betts emphasized was his versatility. He knows that being able to rush the quarterback isn't enough. He's been playing special teams, providing edge on defense, covering gaps, and doing whatever he's asked to do. He even mentioned that he got to play a little punt and punt return during the Giants' preseason game. The more you can do, the better your chances are of sticking around, and Betts understands that.